18 years in one company can disappear in a single sentence. When her boss dismissed her with a cold smile and a rehearsed speech, the room thought the story had just ended. What none of them knew was that the most powerful phone call of the day hadn't happened yet. The conference room smelled faintly of fresh coffee and polished wood, the kind of sterile corporate calm that hides uncomfortable decisions. Morning light spilled through the tall windows of the 23rd floor, reflecting off the glass walls where quarterly charts and growth projections were still glowing on the screen. Anna Kowalska had sat at that table for 18 years, not once as a guest, not once as a visitor, always as the person who made the numbers happen. The folder in front of her was thick with contracts, notes, and summaries of deals that had quietly shaped the company's growth. Some of them had taken months, some had taken years. A few had nearly collapsed at the last moment before she pulled them back from the edge. Together they formed a portfolio worth $90 million. And yet none of that seemed to matter this morning. Her boss, Marek Nowicki, stood at the head of the table with the posture of someone who had already rehearsed the conversation several times. His hands were folded carefully in front of him. His tone was calm, the calm that managers use when they want something unpleasant to sound procedural. "Anna," he said, without meeting her eyes for more than a second, "thank you for 18 years with the company." The sentence landed with the strange weight of something rehearsed. Around the table, a few colleagues shifted in their chairs. No one spoke. Anna noticed small details the way people do when they sense something important is about to happen. The quiet hum of the projector, the faint ticking of a wall clock, the way Marek avoided looking directly at her. Then came the next sentence. "Unfortunately," he continued, "we're restructuring the department." A few heads lowered. Someone exhaled quietly. Anna felt the air in the room tighten. "We've decided to move in a different direction," Marek added. "Your position is being eliminated." For a moment, nothing moved. It was the kind of silence that stretches thin across a room before it snaps. 18 years reduced to a single paragraph. Anna didn't interrupt him. She didn't ask questions. She didn't argue. Instead, she looked at the folder in front of her. Inside were summaries of deals she had personally negotiated. Long nights, flights to different cities, tense boardroom meetings where millions of dollars had hung in the balance. She had closed contracts when others walked away. She had saved partnerships when they were already collapsing. She had built relationships with investors that the company depended on. And now the same company was explaining that her role was no longer required. Marek cleared his throat. "HR will help with the transition," he added, sliding a document across the table. "You'll receive a standard severance package." Standard. The word lingered in the air like a dull echo. Anna finally lifted her eyes. Not angry, not emotional, just calm. A calm that made two of the managers exchange a quick glance. "Understood," she said. The room seemed surprised by the simplicity of her answer. She closed the folder slowly. The movement was deliberate, almost ceremonial, as if she were closing a chapter that everyone else in the room thought had already ended. Then she reached for the badge clipped to her blazer. A small rectangle of plastic. 18 years of early mornings, late evenings, tense negotiations, and quiet victories condensed into a single object. She unclipped it and placed it on the table. The soft click of plastic against polished wood sounded much louder than it should have. No one spoke. Marek shifted slightly in his chair, perhaps expecting resistance, questions, frustration, something that would justify the uncomfortable atmosphere in the room, but Anna simply stood. "Thank you for the opportunity," she said politely. Her voice carried the calm tone of someone who had already processed the moment before anyone else in the room understood what it meant. She gathered her notebook, her pen, and the thin leather folder she always carried to meetings. Then she walked toward the door. Behind her, the executives remained seated, unsure whether to feel relieved or unsettled. The door closed quietly, and for several seconds, no one in the conference room moved. What none of them realized was that the most valuable asset in the building had just walked out. Not the deals, not the contracts, the relationships, because every one of those $90 million in agreements had something in common. They trusted Anna, not the company. Anna. Downstairs in the lobby, the glass doors opened with a soft mechanical whisper as she stepped outside. The autumn air was cool and sharp. For the first time in 18 years, she had nowhere specific to go at 9 in the morning. Anna took out her phone. There were already 3 unread emails, 2 from colleagues who had heard the news within minutes, and 1 from an unfamiliar sender. She opened it. The subject line contained only 2 words. "Quick question." Anna paused, because the company name below the email address made her eyebrows lift slightly. It belonged to the CEO of their biggest rival, and the message had been sent 6 minutes ago. The timing felt almost impossible. She read the first sentence, and suddenly the calm expression on her face changed, just slightly, because whoever wrote that message knew far more about her work than the people who had just fired her upstairs. The glass doors of the building slid shut behind Anna with a soft hydraulic whisper. For 18 years, those doors had opened for her every morning at exactly 8:42. The security guard usually nodded. The reception desk always greeted her by name. The elevators knew her floor almost by instinct. Today, none of that mattered. The badge was gone. The routine was gone. And yet the strange thing was, Anna didn't feel empty. She felt alert. Like the quiet moment right before a storm changes direction. She stood on the sidewalk for a few seconds, the cool autumn air brushing against her face, while traffic moved slowly through the business district. Office workers passed by with laptops and coffee cups, unaware that something very unusual had just happened 23 floors above them. Her phone was still in her hand. That email. She opened it again. Sender, Daniel Hartman. Title, CEO Company. Arden Global Capital. Anna exhaled slowly. Arden Global. The company name alone carried weight in the industry. They were aggressive, fast-moving, and known for buying strategic talent the same way other companies bought entire departments. But that wasn't the surprising part. The surprising part was how fast the message had arrived. 6 minutes after she walked out of the meeting. That meant one of 2 things. Either news inside the building traveled at the speed of electricity, or someone inside that room had already contacted Arden. Anna read the message carefully. It was short, direct. Anna, I just learned you may have left your position today. If you're available for a brief conversation, I would value 15 minutes of your time. Daniel Hartman. No sales pitch, no pressure, just quiet precision. Anna tilted her head slightly. Most CEOs didn't write emails like that themselves. They delegated. They sent recruiters. They scheduled assistants. But this one had written to her personally. And that meant he knew something. She looked up at the glass tower behind her. 23 floors of polished corporate confidence. Somewhere up there, Marek Nowicki was probably already explaining to the board why eliminating her position was a strategic restructuring. The phrase almost made her smile. Strategic. Anna knew the numbers too well. Out of the company's largest accounts, nearly a third had been negotiated directly through her relationships. Some investors didn't even speak to the legal team without first asking for Anna to be on the call. Not because she was loud, not because she was aggressive, but because she was precise. She kept promises. And in high-value deals, that mattered more than anything. Her phone vibrated again, a second email from the same sender. Anna raised an eyebrow and opened it. Correction, the message said. I would actually value 30 minutes. Now she laughed quietly, not loudly, just a small, surprised breath. The CEO of Arden Global was increasing the meeting time before she had even answered the first email. Interesting. Anna started walking slowly down the street, past the familiar row of cafes where she had taken countless business lunches over the years. Every corner of the neighborhood held a memory. Deals discussed over espresso, last-minute contract revisions scribbled on napkins, late-evening negotiations that stretched past closing time. She knew these streets almost as well as she knew the conference rooms upstairs. Her phone vibrated again. This time it wasn't email. It was a call. Unknown number. Anna stopped walking. For a moment she considered letting it go to voicemail, but something told her not to. She answered. Hello? The voice on the other end was calm, confident, and unmistakably used to making decisions. Anna Kowalska. It wasn't a question. Speaking. A short pause followed, the kind of pause people make when they want to confirm a first impression. Daniel Hartman, the voice said. Anna glanced at the street ahead of her, where the city moved as if nothing unusual was happening. Yet somehow the day had just shifted direction again. "Thank you for answering," he continued. "I imagine today has been unexpected." That was one way to describe it. Anna leaned lightly against the railing near the cafe terrace. "You could say that," she replied calmly. Another brief pause. "Good," Hartman said. Good? The word sounded strange in this context. "I prefer speaking to people during moments like this," he continued. "They tend to be more honest." Anna smiled slightly. This man was interesting. "What would you like to discuss?" she asked. His answer came immediately. "Your portfolio." Anna went still, because there was no polite way he could have known the exact size of her deal portfolio unless someone had already mentioned it, and that meant the news inside her former company was spreading faster than anyone upstairs probably realized. "Which part of it?" she asked. "The $90 million part," Hartman said simply. Anna didn't respond right away. Traffic lights changed. A bus rolled past. A few people crossed the street in front of her. And yet suddenly the city felt strangely quiet. Because if the CEO of Arden Global already knew the value of her deals, then this call was not spontaneous. It had been waiting. "I see," Anna said calmly. "Good," Hartman replied again. His tone carried a faint hint of satisfaction. "Tell me something, Anna," he said. "When you left the building this morning, did they ask you to sign a non-compete clause?" Anna's eyes narrowed slightly. No, they hadn't. The severance document was standard. Too standard. Almost careless. Which meant Marek Nowicki had just made a mistake so large that the entire industry might soon notice it. Anna straightened slowly. "No," she said. The silence on the other end lasted 2 seconds. Then Hartman spoke again. "Excellent." The word landed with quiet certainty. And for the first time since the morning meeting, Anna realized something. Her former company believed they had just closed a chapter, but somewhere across the city, someone else had just opened a much bigger one, and judging by the calm voice on the phone, that chapter was about to become very expensive for the company that had just fired her. But what Anna didn't know yet was how quickly the consequences would arrive. Do you think the company made a mistake letting her go after 18 years? Subscribe and comment. Your opinion might be closer to the truth than you think. Anna stood near the cafe railing for a few seconds after the call ended, her phone still warm in her hand. The city continued its normal rhythm, taxis sliding through intersections, office workers rushing toward meetings, waiters arranging chairs outside terraces. But for Anna, the morning had quietly transformed. 18 years of routine had ended in a single sentence, and within the span of one phone call, a completely different path had appeared. She looked down at the message Daniel Hartman had just sent, a calendar invitation. Coffee, 11:30 a.m. Location, Arden Global Headquarters. Anna glanced at the time. 10:47. Barely an hour ago, she had been sitting in a conference room listening to a carefully rehearsed dismissal speech. Now the CEO of the company's largest rival was reserving time in his schedule. The speed of it was almost absurd. She began walking again, slowly, her thoughts aligning the way they always did when business decisions were forming. Hartman knew about the portfolio, $90 million, but numbers alone rarely explained interest like this. What mattered in her world were relationships, trust, the invisible network of investors, legal advisors, fund managers, and board members who quietly decided where large capital flowed. And those relationships had never belonged to the company. They had belonged to her. Anna turned the corner toward a quiet street lined with older office buildings. The reflection of the glass tower she had just left shimmered faintly in a distant window. For 18 years she had helped build its reputation. Now she was curious how quickly that reputation might start to shift. Her phone buzzed again. This time the message came from someone she recognized immediately. Victor Salgado, senior investment partner, one of the most demanding negotiators she had ever worked with. Victor rarely wrote casual messages. Anna opened the text. "Just heard the news. Call me when you can." She stared at the screen for a moment. That was fast. News inside large corporations usually moved slowly through formal channels. But the world of investors moved differently. It was smaller, tighter. People noticed things quickly, especially when someone responsible for a $90 million deal portfolio suddenly disappeared from the organizational chart. Anna slipped the phone back into her coat pocket. Victor's message confirmed something important. The market was already reacting. She continued walking toward a small park where a row of benches faced the river. The wind carried the faint scent of wet leaves and distant traffic. It was quiet there, a good place to think. Anna sat down and opened her notebook. For years she had kept it during negotiations, a habit she never abandoned, even when digital tools became more convenient. Inside were pages of names, notes, small details about people that rarely appeared in official documents. Which investor preferred morning calls, which partner trusted quick decisions, which board member valued careful preparation over aggressive strategy. Information like that never showed up in company reports. But it decided deals. Anna flipped to a page marked with a thin blue tab. Arden Global Capital. She had negotiated against them before. Hartman's company was known for bold acquisitions and for hiring people who could move capital quickly, very quickly. That meant the meeting later today would not be a polite conversation. It would be an evaluation. And Anna understood something clearly. Hartman wasn't simply offering her a job. He was calculating the value of what had just walked out of his competitor's building. The wind shifted slightly, rustling the pages of her notebook. Anna closed it. Because another realization had just arrived. If Hartman already knew about the $90 million portfolio, then there was a strong chance he had already started reviewing the deals behind it, which meant his analysts were probably asking a very specific question: who actually trusted the company, and who trusted Anna? Her phone vibrated again. Another message, this time from an unknown number. Anna opened it. The text was short. "Anna, this is Laura Chen from Horizon Infrastructure. I heard you may have left your firm this morning. If that's true, we should speak soon." Anna blinked once. Horizon Infrastructure was responsible for one of the largest deals in her portfolio, $42 million. And if Laura Chen was already reaching out, then something interesting was happening behind the scenes. Anna leaned back slightly on the bench, looking at the slow current of the river. A quiet pattern was emerging. One investor had written, then another, and soon, most likely, several more. Not because of the company, because of her. She checked the time again. 11:05. The meeting with Hartman was in 25 minutes. Enough time for the situation inside her former office to change dramatically. Somewhere up on the 23rd floor, someone in the finance department would eventually notice something strange. Investors asking unusual questions, partners requesting clarification, emails arriving with a subtle but unmistakable tone of uncertainty. And when those questions started connecting together, someone would eventually ask the obvious one. Why did we fire the person who managed all those relationships? Anna stood from the bench. The city skyline reflected across the river in long silver lines. She placed the notebook back in her bag and began walking toward Arden Global's headquarters. Because one thing was now certain. The meeting Hartman had requested was not just about her next job. It was about the balance of power between two rival companies. And somewhere, perhaps at this very moment, Marek Nowicki might be starting to realize that the calm woman who had quietly returned her badge that morning had just become the most valuable person in the entire negotiation landscape. But the real surprise was still waiting, because Hartman had not yet revealed why he wanted to double her salary. Arden Global's headquarters occupied the top floors of a dark glass tower overlooking the river. The building had a reputation in the financial district, not for size, but for the speed with which decisions inside it seemed to reshape entire markets. Anna stepped into the lobby at 11:26. The space felt different from the polished corporate neutrality she had just left behind earlier that morning. Here the atmosphere carried quiet intensity, the kind that appears in companies where people expect things to move fast. The receptionist looked up from her desk and smiled immediately. "Ms. Kowalska?" Anna raised an eyebrow. "Yes. Mr. Hartman is expecting you." Of course he was. Within seconds, she was guided toward a private elevator that required a security code. The doors slid open smoothly, and as the elevator rose, Anna watched the city spread out through the glass wall behind her. For 18 years she had negotiated deals across conference tables. Today felt strangely different. This wasn't a negotiation yet. It was an evaluation. The elevator stopped on the top floor. A quiet corridor stretched ahead, lined with minimalist offices and glass meeting rooms. Through one of the windows, Anna noticed analysts standing around a large screen displaying financial models. Her instincts sharpened. Numbers moved quickly here. A door opened at the end of the corridor. Daniel Hartman stepped out to greet her personally. He looked exactly like the reputation suggested, composed, direct, and observant. Not theatrical, not overly formal, just precise. "Anna," he said with a small nod, "thank you for coming." She shook his hand. His grip was firm but brief, the kind of handshake used by people who don't waste energy on unnecessary gestures. "Thank you for the invitation," she replied. He gestured toward his office. The room overlooked the river and half the financial district. Sunlight poured through the windows, reflecting across a long table covered with documents. Anna's eyes immediately recognized something. Those documents weren't random. They were deal summaries. Her deals. Hartman noticed the direction of her glance and allowed himself a faint smile. "Yes," he said calmly. "We work quickly." Anna stepped closer to the table. One page showed the Horizon Infrastructure Agreement. Another contained the Baltic Logistics contract, and another listed the energy partnership she had negotiated the previous year. Together, they represented nearly the entire $90 million portfolio. Anna looked back at him. "You already reviewed all of this?" "Not all," Hartman replied. "Only the important parts." He leaned slightly against the edge of the table. "What interests me isn't the contracts," he continued. "It's the pattern." Anna folded her arms lightly. "What pattern?" Hartman slid one of the pages across the table. "Every investor we contacted this morning gave the same answer to the same question." Anna remained silent, because she already suspected what the question had been. Hartman watched her for a moment, clearly enjoying the small, analytical game. "We asked them a very simple thing," he said. "Would you continue the partnership if the structure of the negotiation changed?" Anna tilted her head slightly. "And?" Hartman's answer came with quiet certainty. "They didn't ask about the company." He paused. "They asked about you." The sentence settled in the room with calm gravity. Anna walked slowly around the table, scanning the documents again. "Interesting," she said. Hartman nodded. "Yes, very." He picked up another sheet, a printed email. "This arrived 15 minutes ago," he said. Anna glanced at it. It was from Horizon Infrastructure, the same company that had just written to her earlier in the park. Hartman tapped the page once. "They want reassurance," he explained, "about who will manage their future negotiations." Anna looked at him carefully. "And you told them what?" Hartman smiled slightly. "That depends on you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence carried the quiet tension of high-level business conversations, the kind where both sides already know the stakes. Hartman finally moved toward the window. "You know why your boss made a mistake this morning?" he asked. Anna didn't answer immediately. "Because he underestimated something?" she suggested. Hartman shook his head slightly. "No." He turned back toward her. "Because he thought the value was in the deals." Anna watched him closely. "The value," Hartman said, "is in the person who can repeat them." He returned to the table and slid a single sheet of paper toward her. It was a contract proposal. Anna read the first line, then the second. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Double salary," she said quietly. Hartman nodded. Minimum. Anna looked up. Minimum? Hartman's expression remained calm. Because this isn't just a hiring decision. He tapped the stack of deal summaries. This is a strategic acquisition. Anna closed the document slowly. Outside the window, the city moved in calm afternoon rhythm, unaware that somewhere high above the river, two people were quietly discussing a decision that could shift millions of dollars in future deals. "Let me ask you something," Hartman said. Anna looked at him. "If those investors followed you," he continued, "how much of that $90 million portfolio do you think would move with you?" Anna considered the question carefully, not emotionally, just analytically, because numbers were easier than feelings. Finally, she answered, "Most of it." Hartman smiled again, the same small, satisfied smile. "That's what we calculated." Anna glanced once more at the contract offer. Then she looked out the window toward the distant glass tower where her former company continued its ordinary workday. Up there, Marek Nowicki probably still believed the morning decision had been simple, efficient, strategic. What he didn't know yet was that somewhere across the city, a rival company had just started preparing an offer designed to change the entire competitive landscape, and the first signal of that shift would reach Marek's desk very soon, in the form of a phone call he absolutely would not expect. Anna did not answer immediately. The contract lay on the table between them like a quiet piece of dynamite. Outside the window, the river reflected thin, silver lines of sunlight, and the city continued its ordinary afternoon rhythm, meetings, emails, decisions made in polite conference rooms. But inside Hartman's office, the air carried the calm tension of something much larger beginning to move. Anna read the first page again. The salary line was impressive, yes, but she had spent too many years in corporate negotiations to be distracted by numbers alone. The real information was always hidden in the structure. Equity participation, strategic authority, control over client relationships. Anna turned the page slowly. Hartman watched without interrupting. Every experienced negotiator knew the value of silence. After a moment, she closed the document. "You prepared this quickly," she said. Hartman nodded once. "We started drafting it the moment we confirmed you were no longer inside that building." Anna allowed herself a small smile. "Efficient. We try." He walked toward the coffee machine in the corner and poured 2 cups. The quiet mechanical sound filled the room briefly. "Tell me something honestly," he said, handing her one of the cups. "Did they understand what they were losing?" Anna thought about the conference room that morning, the polished table, the rehearsed speech, the carefully neutral tone of the HR document sliding across the table. "No," she said calmly. Hartman nodded as if that answer had been expected. "That helps." Anna lifted an eyebrow. "Helps?" "Yes." He leaned lightly against the desk. "Strategic surprises work best when the other side doesn't realize they're in the middle of one." Anna took a slow sip of coffee. The flavor was strong, precise, exactly the way high-end offices preferred it. She looked again at the stack of documents on the table, her portfolio, $90 million in deals. But the real value wasn't written on paper. It was written in trust, and trust traveled with people. Hartman seemed to read the same thought in her expression. "You're wondering how quickly those relationships might move," he said. Anna didn't deny it. "Some will wait," she replied. "Some will watch. A few will test the waters." Hartman nodded. "Exactly." He picked up a tablet from the desk and tapped the screen once. A chart appeared. Anna stepped closer. 3 columns, current contracts, renewal windows, key relationship managers. Her name appeared repeatedly in the 3rd column. "Your former company structured most of these agreements around personal negotiation," Hartman said. Anna recognized the structure immediately. It was the system she herself had recommended years earlier. At the time, it had made deals smoother. Now it created something else entirely: dependence. "If the relationship manager changes," Hartman continued calmly, "investors usually reassess." Anna looked at him carefully. "You're planning to accelerate that process." Hartman didn't deny it. "We're planning to offer stability." a polite corporate phrase, but Anna understood what it meant. Phone calls, private meetings, subtle suggestions that negotiations might soon move somewhere more predictable. She placed the coffee cup back on the desk. "Then you don't just want to hire me?" Hartman's smile returned. "No." He tapped the portfolio documents again. "I want to hire the future of those deals." Anna looked out the window. Across the river, the glass tower of her former company caught the afternoon sun, shining like nothing had changed. But she knew how fragile corporate confidence could be. All it took was a few phone calls, a few investors asking quiet questions, a few contracts approaching renewal. Hartman's phone vibrated on the desk. He glanced at the screen. Then he looked back at Anna. "Well," he said, "that didn't take long." Anna watched him. "What happened?" Hartman turned the phone slightly so she could see the message. It was from his strategy team. A short update. Horizon Infrastructure requested confirmation. If Anna Kowalska joins Arden Global, they are open to restructuring their agreement. Anna felt a quiet shift in the room. Not shock, not excitement, just confirmation. One investor had already started moving. Hartman placed the phone down slowly. "You see," he said calmly, "this is why your boss made the most expensive decision of his career this morning." Anna folded her arms thoughtfully. "Maybe." Hartman raised an eyebrow. "Maybe?" She looked at him with the calm, analytical expression that had carried her through 18 years of negotiations. "Because the real question," she said, "is not whether investors will follow." Hartman waited. "The real question," Anna continued, "is how many will move at the same time." Hartman's smile widened slightly, because he had clearly been hoping she would say exactly that. Outside the window, the late afternoon sun began to sink slowly toward the horizon. Across the river, in a conference room on the 23rd floor of another building, someone was probably just starting to notice something unusual. Emails, questions, investors asking who would handle negotiations now. And very soon, someone would have to explain why the woman who managed $90 million in deals had been calmly escorted out of the building. Anna picked up the contract again. This time she didn't read it slowly. She simply signed. Hartman extended his hand. "Welcome to Arden Global." Anna shook it, and somewhere across the city, without yet realizing it, her former boss had just lost far more than an employee. He had lost control of the most important relationships his company had, and by the time he understood the full cost of that morning's decision, it would already be too late.